Hi, good morning. I'm Sandeep Varyam. I'm security consultant with Palo Alto Networks. Hope everyone is keeping safe and sound. First of all, I would like to thank for giving us an opportunity to present on this virtual cybersecurity forum today. And my point of discussions is on zero trust, right? I'm sure that most of you, I would say many of you, will have your discussions around zero trust in your internal meetings, your board meetings, your meetings with your vendors, partners, etc. So this has been a common trend during our recent kind of discussion, especially since we are in a pandemic state. The concept of zero trust has taken a very fast pace. And idea is to discuss much more in detail about what zero trust means and how can you apply zero trust in your real life, real enterprise life. So going forward, so if you look at from a trend perspective, what we have seen predominantly is an age of digital transformation. This is very important. The reason being because from a customer's perspective, it's always important for them that their assets or their employees or their applications, irrespective of where they are, there could be their applications could be on your physical data centers, applications could be on your public cloud, which means a SaaSified kind of an application, or this could be hosted on a public cloud. Doesn't matter where it is, but it's most important for every enterprises is to make sure that those particular applications are available for your users at every point of time. Having said that, if you look at from a driver's perspective, what actually drives a digital transformation today is basically the three pillars what we understand. So first part is from a connectivity point of view. So what do we mean by that is if you look at a typical enterprise segment today, right? Let's say that irrespective of the number of users you have, you may have a 5,000 users, you may have a 100K plus users. Irrespective of that, if you look at least from a user's point of view, you have at least 3x to 4x number of IoT kind of a devices today, if you typically see an enterprise world. So what does this mean is, in the next 5 to 6 years of time, if you see the amount of growth, what we see, especially from an IoT segment or an IoT or a smart device point of view, that's just huge, right? I think that's a trend which you will see, and a lot of customers are already thinking towards delivering an IoT kind of a security model. So that's one thing. The second thing is in terms of adoption of cloud. This is primarily from a public cloud perspective, but however, we understand that in the next 2 to 3 years of time, at least 80% of the workloads which an enterprise have today would have already moved to the cloud. And there are various points of discussions there. For example, why should I move? This could be a cost advantage. This could be a performance advantage. This could be from a flexibility or a scalability point of view. So a lot of factors there, even though the cost is slightly a debatable topic, but still that is something which is which we are seeing pretty much during customer discussions. The third part is in terms of from the recent adoption of technologies, which could be, for example, let's say we talk about machine learning, we talk about artificial intelligence, and cloud being one platform where you can deliver all those things in a great fashion, correct? So the reason is because from a cloud perspective, what we want or what customers want is to deliver those services at a very faster pace. And that's why you have technologies already built in on the cloud as well, who can deliver that or the solutions which is already deployed on cloud which can deliver that approach, right? So these are typical driving forces from a digital transformation perspective. And as and when we grow, in which means where we are actually removing the perimeter boundary, we're actually moving away all the way from physical data centers all the way towards SaaSified or a public cloud data centers. The threat landscape has also moved accordingly. So what do I mean by that is, especially when you're on public cloud kind of infrastructure, we use a lot of automation tools there, right? It could be a services like which can provide automation, which can provide a security automation, which can provide a compute automation, etc. We use a lot of automation there on public cloud. And it can apply the same thing for an advisory as well, which means from an advisory point of view, I may not have to invest or I may not have to enter a physical data center now. I can only compromise your cloud data centers. And how do you do that is I can spin up a malicious code. I can spin up a malicious VM. I can spin up a malicious container just for a shorter period of time. And with that, I can try to automate attacks, which you can call it as a zero touch attacks kind of a concept, right? That's what we have been seeing that. I think there are a lot of customers. If you're seeing the high-end data center customers, if you're looking at from a high IT segments, there's a lot of customers which has been affected with these kind of attacks. And there are companies which gets attacked today, maybe in the next 3 years, 4 years down the line, they get attacked again. So I'm sure you have read the recent articles on that as well. So that is evolving, and there is no end to that, right? At the same time, the customers have to be ready that their infrastructure is ready to counter these kind of threat landscape as well. Having said that, From a zero trust approach, what should we think about, right? I'm sure all of you know that zero trust is not a product, right? So end of the day, what should be our thought process when we are defining a zero trust kind of an approach? So what I think or what we believe is typically two facets here. One is I'm assuming that anyone which is connecting to my infrastructure is already compromised, right? So which means the concept of zero trust there. The second part is, let's say anyone which is talking to that infrastructure which is already compromised, got compromised, right? It's like you're passing on that particular compromised state onto a different machine which is talking to my infrastructure. So we are taking a two-step approach. What is connecting to my infrastructure may be compromised. What talks to those devices after that, that also may get compromised after that. So how do we take that philosophy, or how do we take that approach in our real life, in our real enterprise? So that's the thought process which I want to set during the next course of discussions what we're going to have. So if you look at from a technology landscape, I'm sure this is pretty much clear for all of you. We have n number of security kind of solutions deployed in your infrastructure, right? You may be a small enterprise, you may be a very large enterprise. It doesn't, irrespective of that, there are n number of security solutions which is currently deployed in your infrastructure. And I think one common notion is it's not about installing a single product where I have a endpoint security solutions, or I may have a cloud security solution that actually gives me zero trust. Actually, that notion is not correct, right? And that's something which we need to think about that, because if you look at from entities which actually talks to these solutions, are your employees, are your devices, are respect to the locations what they access, etc. But however, installing devices or security engines, or maybe an inspection engine set at your perimeter segments, or any other so any other areas where there are gaps, that may not be the right approach to achieve a zero trust kind of a model, right? So if you take that analogy and then take that, let's say, for example, let's say if you take an international airport, right? Many of us, I would say most of us are maybe a frequent travelers. That doesn't mean that when I'm visiting that particular airport next time, we are not being checked for each and every parameters. We do, right? We get checked for each and every parameters, which means starting directly at the boarding gate itself, we have been checked for our boarding passes, your passports, the body scans, your retina scans, and whatnot, right? So you pass through each and every security checks before you end, or before you reach the final destination, which is actually boarding your flights and doing a takeoff. So that's a stage, because every angle, including your baggages, screening, etc., right? So every angle there is a good amount of checks what you go through, and to when you arrive at the final destination. So if you take that analogy and then you do a comparison with the zero trust kind of an approach, right? So my focus is, let's say if you look at it in a exact trend today, right? So what do I mean? Now, when you're defining a zero trust kind of a model, you should have a clear understanding in terms of what should be the final outcome. As I said, zero trust should be your grand strategy, right? So end of the day, you need to understand what should be my final outcome. So especially if you take that analogy and then compare with from an airport example point of view, a business outcome, or the final outcome, what is required from an international airport point of view is basically keep your passengers and the flights fully safe, right? That's the final objective of that. But to build that, there could be many approaches. One, you're putting stricter controls. We spoke about that already. We're putting very strict controls across every key areas. That's one brilliant idea of thinking about how do we approach a zero trust kind of an approach. The third thing is in terms of who should be given access, right? What kind of access permissions will a traveler have? What kind of access permissions will be a crew have? What kind of access permissions could be a ground staff have, etc. So there could be many things, which is again, it's a concept of privilege, right? Which goes inside a infrastructure like that, and that has to be taken care as well. And the last part in terms of inspecting, that's where the security monitoring, your CCTV cameras, everything comes into play, which actually does 24/7 monitoring of their infrastructure and ensuring that the passengers or the members which is there inside that is fully safe and secure. So I just want to relate a zero trust kind of a model what we see in a day-to-day life. The other most important part is zero trust. I would say that it's a full-fledged security strategy kind of a model. So what do we mean by that is, again, we spoke earlier, it's not about deploying products or point solutions everywhere and then achieving a zero trust. That may not be achieved in that particular fashion. It has to be a full-fledged security strategy. As I said, your applications today are in a physical data center. Your applications may be completely SaaSified. Your applications may be delivered on a public cloud infrastructure today. But however, who's accessing that application is basically your employees and from their particular end devices or your corporate assets. So first thing is those particular corporate assets has to be fully secured. There are ways and means to fully secure that infrastructure. So that's the first area of which we need to fix. The second part is in terms of from an identity, which means from a user point of view. I think gone are the days where we used to only look at which is the source, which are the destination. I think it's more than 10 plus years where people already focus in terms of I need to look at exact identity of the person who is connecting to my infrastructure. So I need to differentiate between whether it's a full-time employee, whether it is a partner employee, or whether it's a contractor, or this could be a client project employee, etc. So we need to have a full-fledged differentiation so that we exactly understand what is that identity of that particular person connecting from. And there could be many channels of connectivity for him, right? So now, since we are in a pandemic state, all of us are connecting, working from home, connecting over the internet, maybe a secure VPN connectivity, etc. So that's a typical challenge, what they end up accessing. And if you look at from an application side point of view, the application has also changed, right? A lot of customers have moved towards a container kind of a strategy. I'm sure large enterprises and who are having a large cloud presence have already moved on to that particular angle. And that's a trend which you will see. That's something which will be proliferating in the next coming years. So a lot of containers models which is coming up, which is being used on a day-to-day basis in your infrastructures. There are a lot of customers still, they use a, what do you say, which typically moving your physical data center directly to the cloud, which is typically installing the applications on a real-time web service or real-time application servers or VMs, right? That's a strategy also which I have seen. So end of the day, the point here is irrespective of who is accessing, which means the identity of the person is very important. From what kind of devices, what kind of location is trying to access from is very important. And end of the day, what is a destination application, right? So when you think about these areas, that's where your strategy is built. So how will I build a security strategy so that I can cover all these facets whenever a person or whenever anyone access my set of corporate infrastructure. And the second thing is there is another point of discussions again with customers is I've heard many times a lot of thought leaders, a lot of exciting discussions on this, where there's a lot of concept of a ZTNA. ZTNA basically stands for Zero Trust Network Access. And I think there's a notion saying that Zero Trust Network Access and Zero Trust is the same. But unfortunately, it's not, right? And I'm sure all of you agree with that. So from a Zero Trust Network Access point of view, it's more focused towards how from a network connectivity point of view, how can I deliver Zero Trust, which means when we talk about, as say from an access point of view, right? How do you connect to that infrastructure, right? How do you securely connect to that infrastructure? How can you access those infrastructures in a safer fashion? That's a typical approach from a ZTNA point of view. There are ways and means of connecting it. Could be an agent-based approach, could be a broker-based approach. There are many discussions which is going on that. But however, ZTNA as a concept, I would say is just a small stepping stone in achieving Zero Trust. Zero Trust is the final strategy which you need, and ZTNA is one of the components within that. So it's good that we know the differentiation about ZTNA and the Zero Trust kind of a model, so that we are clear what we need to look up in the future. And the most important part is whenever you're deploying a Zero Trust kind of a model, the most important persons, irrespective of the scale or the size of customers you are, from a Zero Trust point of view, SOC plays a very important role. This could be a InfoSec team, this could be a SecOps team, this could be a large SOC or a dedicated SOC in a very large enterprises. They play a very critical role. Why is that? Is because one, whatever we discussed earlier, right, in terms of every checks, in terms of every flows, in terms of access, etc. End of the day, who does the monitoring for that? That's your security operations team actually does the monitoring for that. And they need rich information. I would say it's not about information or alerts assets. So what they need is basically context, which means I understand that there is something which is wrong, which has happened today. Now, how do I monitor that? How do you understand that? How can I connect the dots now? I had an endpoint activity. I had a network level activity. I had my cloud level activity. Is there any way that I can connect the dots together? Can we present them a platform, or can we give them a analysis or a context which says, hey, this is the network activity which happened when they accessed an application which is situated in my public cloud, and this is the particular user attached to that, and this particular machine was compromised, right? So we are trying to connect all the dots, and I think that's where the SOC teams will like, the analysts will like that. because for them it's all about enrichment. It's all about the data what they get, and then provide more enrichment and threat intel on top of that. So the technologies or from us or the thought process perspective from an analyst or a SOC lead from a CISO perspective will be that I need to have a good amount of intelligence there. This could be from a threat point of view, this could be from a behavior analysis point of view, this could be from a security automation point of view, right? So I'm sure you would have heard about orchestration, automation, response, right? Especially in a SOAR kind of an infrastructure and a SOC, right? So it's been widely used, it's been widely consumed because security automation is of the topmost priority for them, so that they can also understand what is the score of a SOC, right? How do I provide an ROI for a SOC? So a lot of things comes in that particular discussion fashion. So SOC plays a very important role. So going forward, so what I want to lay down is typically a 5-step methodology in achieving zero trust, right? So we are not talking about specific product lines or anything here. So basically I want to lay down a final approach or maybe a 5-step strategy, which will help us to deploy zero trust in your enterprise segments. So the first thing is define the protecting surface. So what do we mean by that is, one, if you want to deploy zero trust in your infrastructure, most important part is we should know what I need to protect first, right? When I say what I need to protect, end of the day, this will be your users. This could be your applications. As I said, could be a SaaS-based applications, could be a physical data center applications. We need to know exactly what we need to protect, where that application is, where that data is, where that asset is, and how should I put a blueprint now so that I can start protecting that infrastructure. That's the first part of that. The second part is in terms of from a transaction perspective, which is from a transaction flows perspective, which means how is a user connecting from a location popping to my application, right? What does he access? Where does he access? So we need to understand each and every flow. As I said, if you relate to the SOC example, which I gave you earlier, we are trying to connect the dots where I had a network activity, I had an endpoint activity, I had a cloud activity. Is there any way that we can build a context here? That is very, very important when deploying zero trust. If you have a missing piece, if you have a visibility issue in any of these segments, I think that actually slows down the zero trust approach which you want to develop or deploy in your large enterprises or in your enterprise segments. The third part is architecting a zero trust. What does this mean here is, take an example of, let's say, segmentation. Take an example of, let's say, a micro segmentation on a cloud world, right? Now, this is also very important because in your enterprise infrastructure, there could be many areas which we need to fix. One, physical data centers, I'm sure you will be deploying the topmost security solutions there. I think you will be deploying that. But typically, if you move towards a virtual infrastructure, you have a concept of software-defined data center. There are areas or there are flows which you need to look at that area. If you look at the public cloud, especially let's say a container world, a container may be talking to another container, right? How do you control those kind of accesses? So that's where you actually start architecting a zero trust network, where segmentation is just one part of it, right? There are very ways and means to look at that, but however, segmentation is one part of that particular story. So that has to be taken care very accurately as well. The fourth part is in terms of creating a full-fledged policy. I'm sure you may have heard about a Kipling kind of a method, right? So Kipling method means it talks about different questions in terms of who needs access, why they need access, what do they want to access, from where are they accessing, how will they access, when will they access, which means there are n number of questions which we answer ourselves. We ask the question ourselves, and then we put in our security controls or our blueprint in such a way that we cover each and every check boxes, right? That becomes very, very effective when you're actually laying a blueprint for zero trust in your enterprise. So zero trust policy, when you're looking at a zero trust policy, maybe a least privilege access, right? If you think about that kind of a concept, that's where it can lay a good background or good baseline when you're deploying your strategy. And the fourth part and the fifth part, I would say that is again from a monitoring perspective. I think we spoke about earlier. This is where the SOC teams plays a very critical role. So let's try to help them. Let's try to help the team so that we give them more and more context. We give them good enriched information. We try to help them to connect the dots, saying that, okay, if I want to do an investigation, if I want to do a detection, if I want to do a response, what is the best data what you can give me? It's not about giving them thousands or 10,000s of alerts, right? It's not about that. It's not about alerts point of view. It's about giving them the right context and then giving the right data so that they can start working on that. Because end of the day, whatever we run inside the infrastructure, end of the day, there should be some person or some team, which is, let's say in this case, a SOC team, which actually does investigation responses on the fly. If I have an issue today, if there is something malicious which has happened in my infrastructure, how do I fix that on the fly, right? Whether it takes me 4 days of time, or can I fix that in, let's say, a couple of hours, or let's say 1 hour, right? So that's the level of what do you say, intel or fidelity which you need to give that information to those monitoring team or the SOC team. So this is pretty much required when you want to deploy zero trust kind of a strategy in your enterprise. So we have been helping customers across in securing those infrastructure, securing the zero trust kind of a strategy, what they want. We have been helping them. So we are not getting into the product discussions here, but however, I think we have been fortunate in terms of talking to the top customers across the globe, and we have been helping them in terms of laying that approach. Happy to connect with all of you offline as well, in case if you want to have further discussion on that. Happy to help you. Happy to discuss with you much more in detail. So with that, I just want to summarize. As I said, from a zero trust perspective, it's not about from a product or what you deploy as a product internally. It's all about building a strategy. As I said, you have to look at many things. What do you need to block, or what do you need to protect? What is that data all about? How do you map the flows? Who does access to what? How do you put in a policy structure? And end of the day, how do you monitor it effectively? So all these things will help us in bringing that zero trust kind of an angle. And that's where we can work together, we can help together in helping you achieving the success in delivering zero trust approach. With that, thank you so much once again, and thanks, and hope all of you are again keeping safe and sound. Take care. Bye.